Yo, 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 yo. Y'all ready? Say yes, 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 say yes. How about that yesterday? Okay, don't spill, don't spill, don't spill, don't spill, don't spill. Oh. Yeah. Type shit.
We learn from an early age of who to look for when things go wrong.
Hold on, we gotta change the lights.
We look for a uniform, the badge.
Set the vibe.
It's supposed to be a guarantee of safety. A police officer is supposed to be the person standing between us and the things that want to hurt us. But what happens when the person wearing that badge is the one you need to be saved from? The evening of July 24th, 2013 settled over the port city of Gunsan. With the heavy humidity typical of a South Korean summer, inside an apartment, a woman in her 40s was getting ready to step out. This wasn't a major outing. She didn't change into anything formal. She threw on something comfortable, casual clothes. She didn't even grab her purse. She left her main bag sitting right there inside the apartment and took only her absolute essentials. She told her family she was going out for a little while to meet someone she knew, and she expected to be right back. The person she was meeting was a police officer, and for her family, hearing that she was stepping out to meet a cop brought a sense of security. She walked into the warm evening air and headed toward a local pavilion. It was a quiet public spot, a place where people would meet up for a brief conversation before heading back home. She would reach the area around the pavilion, and then she vanished. Hours passed. The sky over Gunsan turned dark. Back at the apartment, the time it was taking her to get back home slowly began to feel wrong. When someone intends to leave for a long time, they take their things, taking a bag, or they make arrangements. They don't just walk out in casual clothes and promise to return soon. Her family tried to reach her again, and the calls went unanswered, and the hours dragged on. The quiet in the apartment started to feel suffocating. Her family began pacing the floor. They called her phone again and again, but it went straight to voicemail, and they finally contacted the authorities to report her missing. When the police began taking down the details of her disappearance, they started asking questions: where she was last seen, what she was wearing, or who she was going to meet. So the family gave them the name. She had gone to meet Sergeant Jung Won-gun. He was a 14-year veteran of the Gunsan police force. He was a married man with a family, a solid career, and had the authority that comes from wearing a badge. The investigators now had to look across the precinct at the man they worked with every single day. The next day, Sergeant Jung was at the precinct. He was present in the building in the days immediately following her disappearance. But people around him began noticing physical changes. He had fresh, distinct scratches on his face and body. When you work in law enforcement, you learn how to read physical signs very quickly. A scratch on the face usually means close quarters contact. It means someone was fighting back. Jung offered excuses for the marks, brushing them off as minor injuries for mundane activities. But the timing was impossible to ignore. A woman he knew just vanished without a trace, and he was walking around with defensive wounds on his skin. And Jung understood exactly how this worked. After 14 years of building cases against suspects, he knew the mechanics of an investigation as well as everyone else in that room. He knew how cell phone towers pinged. He had watched hundreds of hours of CCTV footage, and he had seen firsthand how fast a circle of suspicion closes once physical evidence starts piling up. And he didn't wait for his colleagues to formally close that circle. He scrubbed his vehicle. manually deleted the footage from his car's black box, the dashboard camera system that records the road and the audio inside the cabin. And then he ran. He abandoned his post, his family, and his entire life, fleeing the city in a desperate attempt to outrun his own department. He bounced between different provinces to confuse the pursuit. Every move he made was calculated by a mind trained in tracking fugitives. He knew exactly what his fellow colleagues were doing back in Gunson. He knew they were pulling his financial records, tracking his license plate, and waiting for him to make a simple mistake. For 10 days, the manhunt continued. The public was watching closely. A veteran police officer was on the run in connection with a missing woman. 10 days after the woman disappeared, the chase finally ended. Jung Won-gun was tracked down, surrounded, and placed in handcuffs by other officers. He was transported back and walked into the interrogation room. It was a familiar environment for him, except this time, he was the one sitting on the wrong side of that table. And finally, he stopped running. He opened his mouth and gave a confession that officially turned the missing persons case into a murder investigation.
Oh, shit.
According to Jung's statement, he and the victim had been keeping a massive secret. They were involved in an affair. He was a married man with a reputation to uphold, and the relationship had been hidden from everyone, and the secret had recently become impossible to contain. Jung told the detectives that she was pregnant. He claimed on that evening of July 24th, they met near the pavilion to discuss the situation. She got into his car, and according to his version of events, the conversation quickly deteriorated. He stated that she demanded money from him. She wanted financial support, and she held the ultimate leverage over his life. She even threatened to go to his wife and expose the entire affair, the pregnancy, and his double life. The argument escalated inside the confined, humid space of the car, and he said it became physical, reaching out and clawing at him, leaving the deep scratches on his face and body, and he told detectives that the pressure broke him. In what he described as a sudden, uncontrollable fit of rage, he lashed out. He put his hands around her neck and then squeezed. The space inside the car turned violent and desperate. He held on as she fought back, scratching at his face, trying to break his grip, and he held on until the struggle stopped, until her heavy breathing ceased, and the scratches on his face were the only violent moment left in the car, and her body was left slumped in the passenger seat. After killing her, he tore off and removed her clothes. He had to figure out what to do next. He drove through the dark, eventually arriving in an abandoned fish farm area. It was an empty, forgotten structure. He carried her body inside, sat her down, and left her there in the dark. Then he got back in his car, deleted the black box footage to erase any audio of the argument or the murder, and began his cross-country chase. The police listened to his confession. He led them to the abandoned fish farm area, and just as he said, her body was there. Exactly 23 hours after Sergeant Jung confessed, the police formally concluded their initial investigation, and they classified the death as an impulsive murder. The victim's family looked at the facts and saw a completely different story. They refused to accept the official ruling of an impulsive crime. They looked at the evidence the department brushed aside. The deleted black box footage stood out immediately. If he really just snapped because she attacked him, why was his very first instinct to permanently destroy the only objective record of that argument? They also noticed the things missing from the scene. Her cell phone was gone. Her shoes were nowhere to be found. A man in a blind rage doesn't pull off a dead woman's shoes. He doesn't take her phone unless there's something on that device that destroys his story. Even his escape route felt calculated to them. Investigators noted that Jung drove back to the crime scene before fleeing the city. A panicked man running for his life doesn't go back, but he went back to check on something. He went back to maybe retrieve something. Their fears went even deeper because the investigation was wrapped up so fast, and the police so quickly accepted the narrative of an argument over money, and they fear there was also possibility of SA or other abuses of power that Jung may have committed against her, knowing full well that if he killed her, she would not be able to testify against him. The only person left alive to tell the story was the man who killed her. Today, the family continues to fight. and they continued to demand a real, thorough investigation into the missing shoes, the destroyed phone, and the wiped footage. They want to know the exact timeline of his movements and the real reason he returned to the warehouse. But they're stuck in an impossible position. The people responsible for finding the truth are the exact same people the killer worked alongside for 14 years. Jungwon Gan was eventually sentenced to 20 years in prison.
20?
It's a terrifying reality when the person meant to protect the vulnerable uses every tool of his profession to erase them, leaving behind a silence that no one is willing to properly investigate.
20 ain't nothing. Nigga, that's chump change, nigga. The fuck? Fuck is 20, nigga?
North Korea is one of the most digitally isolated places on Earth. The global internet, the one where YouTube lives, is available to only a tiny number of people, individuals whose specific professional roles require it, and all of it is under constant monitoring. A couple of years ago, a young woman showed up on YouTube. She spoke fluent English and posted regular vlogs about her life in Pyongyang. If you stumbled upon her page, it looked like proof that normal modern life existed inside North Korea. But the thing was, she wasn't real, at least not in the way people thought. The channel was called Echo of DPRK, and the young woman introduced herself as Yumi. At first glance, the content she uploaded looked exactly like the lifestyle vlogs you scroll past on your phone every single day. In one of her videos, Yumi is shown going through a selection of popsicles. She holds them up to the camera and comments on the flavors in English.
Hell no, I ain't going no fucking North Korea. Fuck North Korea.
Egg with flavor ice cream and this milk flavor. The picture is so cute.
Her videos in general show her doing everyday activities such as visiting parks and visiting amusement parks. She never once mentions the government, the military, or any international politics. To a casual observer, it was a fascinating glimpse into a closed-off country. The longer you watched, the stranger it felt. If you stopped looking at Yumi and started looking at the edges of the frame, things stopped making sense. People quickly noted that the videos often contain details that don't match the reality of life for most people in North Korea. The backgrounds in her videos appear unusually still and controlled. In public settings, the people around her do not behave like ordinary citizens going about their day, as if they've been placed there specifically for the shot. Her indoor videos also show signs of professional production. Pyongyang is known for rolling blackouts. Electricity is highly unreliable, even in the capital. Not even mentioning the food and products featured in the videos are often items that ordinary citizens cannot easily access. Facilities like the amusement parks and water parks often only operate on weekends or special occasions due to North Korea's unreliable power supply, suggesting that some of these scenes may have been filmed specifically for the videos rather than reflecting normal day operations. And then Yumi herself. Normal vloggers eventually show a crack. They drop things, they lose their train of thought, sometimes get frustrated. But Yumi never stumbles. Her smile never fades, not even for a single frame. Her movements seem rehearsed, and it really doesn't look like genuine happiness. The reason this is so strange and unsettling, because you have to look how the internet actually works in North Korea. For an ordinary person, the global web simply doesn't exist. There are no home routers connected to YouTube servers. The country operates on a closed internal network, and only a tiny fraction of the population have physical access to the outside internet. A private citizen can't just wake up and upload it to American tech platform, which means Yumi didn't own the camera. The sets were built, the studio lights were positioned, and a state official pressed upload. And Yumi wasn't alone. Other channels started popping up around the same time. There was an 11-year-old girl named Song A, who sat on a pink sofa, speaking perfect British English, holding up a copy of a Harry Potter book. Analysts quickly realized she was the daughter of a high-ranking North Korean diplomat. These videos represented the shift in North Korean propaganda. The goal appeared to be making North Korea seem like an ordinary or even a safe country to international audiences, especially younger viewers on social media.
Man.
For a long time, North Korean state media was mostly booming news anchors and sweeping footage of military parades. But those videos don't go viral on Western social media. A vlog of a young woman eating ice cream does, because it disarms you. You watch it for 2 minutes and think, maybe things aren't as bad as I thought. But as for the channels, they didn't last long. Because Google operates under strict US sanctions, they legally can't host accounts tied to the North Korean government. And around the summer of 2023, the accounts just completely vanished, almost like it never existed in the first place. New channels still pop up occasionally, using new names and new set pieces, all until YouTube catches them again and the cycle resets. But the thing is, whoever Yumi actually is, she is a real person. She grew up in a country cut off from the rest of the world, handed a script and told to look into a lens. She stood there and talked to millions of people she's legally forbidden from ever meeting. And when that scene was finally over and the camera finally turned off, she had to drop her smile and walk back out into the reality that looked nothing like the one she just filmed.
That's depression. The fuck? No, bro. That's depression.
Picture a photograph resting near the dashboard of a car. A man is smiling warmly into the camera, leaning close to a beautiful Siberian husky, both of them looking completely harmless. The man in the picture is Kang Ho's son. In the mid-2000s, he lived in Gyeonggi Province, South Korea. And to almost everyone who met him, he seemed like the perfect kind of neighbor. Born in 1969, Kang was a clean-cut, 5'7" massage therapist who made his living with his hands, easing tension and pain for his clients. He carried himself with a polite, innocent appearance that made people instinctively trust him. Neighbors and clients often called him a flower boy, a term for men who were gentle, well-groomed, and exceptionally handsome. There was a bubbly energy to him and a genuine sweet demeanor that put everyone at ease. But beneath that facade, however, he was deeply obsessed with women. Over the years, Kang had been married 4 times and had gone through 3 divorces, and he was constantly asking friends to introduce him to wealthy widows or landlords, and at one point, he was juggling at least 5 different girlfriends at the same time. To him, women were entirely disposable. He once casually referred to them as money left on the street, and he would brag to anyone who would listen that he could seduce a woman he wanted within 10 minutes. Before the public understood who Kang Ho's son really was, he was simply viewed as a grieving husband and father. On October 30th, 2005, a fire broke out at a semi-underground house in the city of Ansan, the home of Kang's mother-in-law. Because semi-underground apartments are notoriously difficult to escape when filled with thick smoke, the results were devastating. And by the time emergency responders arrived, and the smoke finally cleared out, they found 2 bodies in the master bedroom. One was his 60-year-old mother-in-law. The other was his 29-year-old wife from his 4th marriage.
Wow.
Standing outside in the aftermath, Kang told the authorities that it was a tragic accident, and according to his account, he had barely managed to navigate the flames, fleeing the house with his young son just in time to survive. Yet the authorities harbored suspicions from the very beginning, and those doubts only deepened when that grieving widower immediately filed paperwork to collect the life insurance policies, and they ultimately walked away with approximately 480 million Korean won, around 344,000 US dollars at the time.
Damn.
Police and prosecutors strongly suspected foul play, noting that the blaze checked every box of a deliberate arson designed for a payout. But without enough hard physical evidence to file charges, the investigation stalled, and Kang remained a free man, and he took his newly acquired wealth and moved on. Around this time, Kang began running a dog farm, raising Siberian Huskies. And to his neighbors, spending his days surrounded by dogs seemed entirely in character with his sweet, gentle persona. They saw him as a devoted animal lover. But the grim reality behind what was actually happening behind those wire fences was very different. During the freezing Korean winters, Kang routinely neglected the animals, locking them in cages and leaving them to starve in the bitter cold.
Ah, yeah,
When he
this
decided
nigga's
the
a
dog
bitch.
was no longer useful, he didn't bother caring for it. Instead, he took a more hands-on approach, personally strangling or electrocuting
What?
them. In fact, that very same Siberian Husky, featured in that smiling dashboard photograph, the picture he used to prove his gentle nature, was one he eventually killed and ate.
Hey!
But the dog farm wasn't the only place Kang exercised absolute control. By the fall of 2006, he started driving a black SUV, making sure that specific photograph of himself in the
Hey.
Husky was clearly visible through the front windshield. On September 7th, 2006, a 23-year-old office worker named Yoon Jung-hyun was waiting at an isolated bus stop in Gangwon province. And with the rural roads quiet, she found herself entirely alone. Headlights eventually cut through the dark as a black SUV slowed to a crawl and pulled up to the curb. Kangwood rolled down the front passenger window, letting the warm air from the heater drift out into the night. He smiled and offered her a ride. And whenever a woman would hesitate to get into the car with a complete stranger, he would flash his warm smile, point to the picture, and then ask a simple, disarming question. Do I look like a bad person? Yoon got into the car, and as the heavy passenger door shut and the locks clicked into place, that polite neighbor vanished. Kang drove her to an isolated area. He would essay her, and then strangled her to death. Afterward, he drove deep into the remote woods, taking a heavy pickaxe to bury her body in the dirt. And it would take her family and the police 3 agonizing years to finally recover her bones from the bottom of a cliff. 3 months later, winter set in hard, and with the bitter weather, Kang's hunting accelerated.
I hope they killed this nigga.
He knew exactly where to look, targeting isolated bus stops on the coldest, rainiest nights, the kind of conditions when women were most desperate for a warm ride. And when those stops were empty, he shifted his focus to karaoke bars, because those places stayed open late, and people often found themselves stranded on the freezing pavement long after midnight, waiting for a cab. And that's when Kang's black car would slowly pull up to the curb. On December 14th, he picked up a 45-year-old karaoke employee named Bae Kyung-mi. 10
Bae
days
Kyung
later,
Mi.
on Christmas Eve, he found a 37-year-old Park Sang-ah,
What
and the
the
pace
fuck?
kept quickening.
Yo.
In the first week of January 2007 alone, he killed a 52-year-old office worker, a 37-year-old karaoke hostess, and a 21-year-old university student. 3 women in just 5 days. His methods
Man,
were
chill
quiet
out, man.
and disturbing,
Man, chill out.
often using the victim's
Oh
own
my
stockings.
God.
He would wrap the thin nylon around their necks and pull
Man, your ass
tight,
need help, man.
and he would never look away, maintaining direct eye contact with the women as their air ran out. And once it was over, the grueling physical labor began, digging graves in the mountains. And in the dead of January, that meant striking rock-hard frozen dirt. And every time Kang
Man.
swung his heavy pickaxe again and again to hide his crimes, it was leaving microscopic traces of their blood, soaked deep into the wooden handle. And then, just as suddenly as the violence escalated, it would stop. Kang went quiet for nearly 2 years. He lived off his insurance payout, maintained his clean-cut image, and upgraded his vehicle to a luxury black Hyundai. And he continued juggling his multiple girlfriends as if nothing had happened. On November 9th, Kang murdered a 48-year-old housewife named Kim So-hee.
Hey, you still
And by
coming?
this point, he had refined his process to ensure that he left no trace behind. Understanding the basics of forensic science, he knew that a struggling victim might scratch her attacker, trapping his skin cells and DNA underneath her fingernails. To solve this problem, Kang started carrying a pair of heavy shears. After strangling his victims, he used the cold metal to sever their fingers, physically destroying the evidence before burial. This would also extend to his financial thefts as well. After
Bro,
a
this
murder,
is sick.
Kang would take his victims' bank cards to the local ATMs and empty their accounts. And knowing his fingerprints can easily be pulled from the plastic keypad, he unrolled a condom and slipped it over his index finger before pressing the buttons. He also developed a habit of driving his vehicles to isolated areas and burning them to the ground whenever he felt they were too heavily compromised by forensic evidence. On December 19th, 2008, he went out hunting again.
Nigga.
Cruising through Ansan, he spotted 19-year-old university student An Young-ok waiting outside.
Man.
The routine played out just as it always did. The rolled down window, the warm smile, and the offer of a ride. She stepped inside and Kang drove away. And after assaulting and strangling her, he mutilated her hands with the shears and buried her into the woods. 12 days later on New Year's Eve,
Nigga.
Kang tried again. Having met a 47-year-old woman through a newspaper personal ad, he took her out drinking. When she got into his car at the end of the night, he locked the doors and demanded, and she would refuse. Instead of attacking her immediately, Kang kept her locked inside the vehicle for 6 straight hours. The woman sat in the passenger seat, trapped in the dark with an engine running, entirely at his mercy. But for whatever reason that was never fully explained, Kang eventually abandoned the attempt. And when dawn finally broke, he unlocked the doors and let her go. When An Young-ok disappeared on December 19th, local police immediately began pulling security footage from the surrounding areas, desperately trying to retrace her steps. And investigators managed to find a camera angle that captured a crucial moment. The grainy, low-quality footage showed An Young-ok stepping to a black Hyundai, and police quickly traced it back to Kang Ho-sun. On January 27th, 2009, officers moved in and made the arrest. Being brought into the interrogation room, Kang initially played the part of the polite, misunderstood citizen perfectly. He remained calm, smiling politely, and completely denied knowing anything about the missing student. And then the detectives dropped the CCTV footage of his car on the table. They showed ATM withdrawal records, matching the exact times the stolen cars were used. They revealed the DNA evidence linking him to multiple crime scenes, specifically the blood embedded in the wood of the pickaxe, the blood that matched several of the missing women. And realizing he was cornered, Kang's demeanor fractured. He was replaced by a cold killer, and within days, he confessed to the murder. And then the floodgates opened. After confessing to all the murders, he finally gave the prosecutors what they had suspected for years, an admission that he intentionally set the 2005 fire, burning his wife and mother-in-law purely for the insurance payout.
Crazy.
In total, he confessed to 10 murders, and looking back to his time running a dog farm, it had been his training ground, turning the act of taking a life into a mundane chore. And for Kang, transitioning from electrocuting dogs to strangling human beings required no emotional leap at all. The media frenzy in South Korea was absolute, as his gruesome details of the crime leaked into the press. The public was horrified by the stark contrast between his wholesome appearance and his monstrous actions, quickly dubbing him as Korea's Ted Bundy. On April 22, 2009, he was sentenced to death for 10 counts of murder and arson.
Good.
During his early days in the Seoul Detention Center, Kang exhibited zero remorse, seeming to view his capture as a minor inconvenience.
Man, kill that nigga.
But as months bled into the years,
What's that
his
nigga
attitude
name?
shifted,
Bones,
and Kang grew noticeably
what that
quiet.
nigga name?
And as of today, Kang remains on death row. What remains of this case is an
He on
unsettling
death row.
truth about human perception. Kang Ho-sun didn't wear a mask. Armed with nothing but his good looks,
I need
a
to
warm
kill that
smile,
nigga.
and a picture of a dog, he understood exactly what a safe person is supposed to look like, and he weaponized that image to open the car door.
Nigga. Son,
It's a Tuesday.
cuz. Bro, I just Googled this shit, bro. Son. Why is it pictures of niggas' bones he killed, bro? Son, bro, this, bro, bro, bro. Because when I went on Google, I typed dead after his name because I thought he was gonna be dead. But it put me on images. And as soon as it put me on images, bro, the second picture is straight bones. Like, son, son. Nah, bro. I couldn't have been no police officer in Korea. Because once they told me what he did, you know what I'm doing? Bah, bah. Like, bro, it gets to a point. And I ain't even know they do stuff like that in Korea. Man, I thought niggas in Korea was so pussy. I ain't gonna even lie, son. I thought niggas in Korea were pussy as fuck. Clearly they not. Just straight weirdos.
The evening in Seoul.
Man.
A 19-year-old university student sits on the edge of her bed, the glow of her phone illuminating her face in the dark room. A telegram notification drops down from the top of the screen. The sender is a string of random numbers. She opens the message, and inside is her full legal name. Below that, her parents' home address. And below that, a list of phone numbers belonging to her closest friends. Finally, there's an image, a highly convincing, digitally manipulated, explicit photo using her face. And then comes instructions. The sender tells her to set up her phone camera, record a specific, explicit video of herself, and send it to him within 10 minutes.
Whoa.
If the clock runs out, he will hit send. And that manipulated image will go to everyone in her contacts. She stares at the glowing screen. If she goes to the police, the investigation will take time. Time the sender won't wait. Her family will see the images before an officer even files a report. So she stands up, walks to her bedroom door, and pushes the lock button. Positions the phone, and presses record, and does exactly what the message demands. And she hits send, wondering if she just bought her freedom, or handed over the rest of her life. South Korea has some of the fastest and most widespread internet coverage anywhere in the world. Smartphone ownership has been near universal for over a decade. And the country built a connected society faster than almost anyone else. But digital connectivity does not discriminate between the things it enables. It amplifies communication, but it also amplifies the kind of crime that depends on reach, anonymity, and the ability to distribute content without ever being physically present. Between 2015 and 2018, police logged over 30,000 reports of a crisis known as Molka. Pinhole lenses no longer than a grain of rice were uncovered inside public bathroom stalls, gym locker rooms, and hotel showers. The crisis fundamentally altered the physical reality of being a woman in these public spaces. Women learned to scan the area, doing so many methods just to feel safe enough to use the toilet. And eventually, the government mandated that all smartphones sold in the country emit a loud, unmutable shutter sound, just to prevent discreet photos on escalators. But as researchers tracked the footage, they realized this was not a simple scatter of unconnected voyeurs. They were organized communities of consumption. There was money moving through the underground forums, driven by structured, ideological hostility toward women.
Nigga, I've been told you I wasn't going, nigga. You the nigga talking about some, yeah, weed. Nigga, who the fuck is weed? Nigga, me not going nowhere, nigga. I'm not going to North Korea. I'm not going to South Korea. Nigga, I'm not going to Asia, period. Nigga, you will be lucky you see me go to Tokyo, nigga. I'm not going to no Koreas. I'm not going to no Thailand. I'm definitely not going to Thailand. Nigga, come on, son. Like, what?
A gendered extremism that created a permanent demand for the material. The original Ninth Room case, which emerged around 2018, involved a man nicknamed God.
This nigga don't look real, bro. This nigga look like that nigga off The Incredibles. The little woman with the little wig, the little short bit. That bitch walked over there. Yo, bro, he look like a... But nah, I ain't fucking with Thailand, gang, at all. In the mode.
Who created multiple Telegram groups where he sold sexually exploitive videos.
Whoa.
The case gained attention after it was exposed, but it also inspired others to copy that exact model. In 2019, a 25-year-old man named Choju Bin
Nigga Nick,
took that same approach and escalated it into a more organized operation, and he created his own Telegram channel known as The Doctor's Room, where he blackmailed dozens of women and girls into producing explicit content. Cho would trap over 60 individuals,
Wow.
including 16 minors,
Wow.
recruiting them through deceptive tactics like fabricated job offers and romantic manipulation. Once he had compromising material, he demanded more, charging tens of hundreds of users cryptocurrency for tiered access to watch his victims comply in real time.
Somebody must got hold
When police
of that
finally
nigga.
arrested
Hey,
Choju
Slime.
Bin in early 2020,
Hey Slime, somebody got a hold of that nigga. And then they got a whole neck brace on. Somebody beat the shit out of this boy.
South Korea experienced a reckoning.
As they should.
Nearly 250,000 people signed a petition demanding his face be shown on national television. Telegram, under intense pressure, agreed to cooperate with local authorities. Choju Bin was eventually sentenced to 40 years in prison.
Where it is?
A 33-year-old man named Kim Nok-won watched the coverage of the trial, studying the police's massive press conferences and leaked court documents. And where the public saw a horror story, Kim saw a prototype. Choju Bin's fatal flaw was acting as the sole point of contact, leaving a massive, traceable digital trail. And Kim wanted a self-sustaining machine. He moved quickly through dating apps and social media, gradually eroding the resistance of his targets under false pretenses, operating from a desk surrounded by monitors. And he built a network called the Vigilantes. He treated the extortion like a multinational corporation, setting up encrypted folder structures, tracking cryptocurrency transfers across untraceable ledgers, and writing custom scripts to send automated threats to compromise accounts while he slept. When a target had emptied their bank accounts and could no longer produce new files, Kim introduced his primary mechanism. A 19-year-old student's phone vibrates on a wooden table inside a crowded Gangnam coffee shop. She picks up her device. The message from Kim Nok-won contains a new rule. He tells her that he will stop the demands and hold her folder, and to buy that silence, she must send a specific link to the person sitting across from her, right now, and make sure that they click it. She looks up. Her high school friend is sitting across the table, stirring her iced coffee. The student swallows hard, opens her messaging app, pastes the link Kim provided, disguised as a personality quiz, and sends it to her friend. Her friend smiles, picks up her phone, and taps the screen. The page loads, and in the background, a hidden script executes, pulling data from the friend's device and sending it directly to Kim Nok-won's server. The student watches her friend scroll. She's sitting across from someone who trusts her completely, knowing that she just handed this girl over to a nightmare, just to buy herself another week of breathing room. This method was suffocating. Recruit someone else and you buy yourself some time. Refuse and everything gets released. The people receiving this instruction were already trapped. The trap was absolute, because the victim couldn't run to their best friend for help, when that was the exact person they were being forced to hunt. And the pyramid built itself outward through fear, trapping victims into an unpaid recruitment force, allowing the designer, the person who runs it all, to remain completely insulated. By late 2024, Kim Nok-won's operation enclosed over 260 people. It was the largest cyber sex crime ring in South Korean history. With Telegram's cooperation, authorities carefully traced the server infrastructure back to a physical location. In early 2025, police raided the residence and arrested Kim Nok-won. They unplugged his hard drives and physically dismantled the servers. In November of that year, the judge handed Kim Nok-won a sentence of life in prison. And now the Telegram channels are closed, and the specific servers he used are now logged in an evidence room. But for the 260 people, the conclusion of the trial does not erase the physical reality of the past 4 years. A young woman still walks through her everyday life, carrying the knowledge of the files floating somewhere on the internet. More permanently, some of these people carry that exact memory of sitting across from a friend, watching her tap a screen, selling out their own friend that trusts them, just for another week. The tools Kim Nok-won used, the internet, encrypted messaging, and cryptocurrency, were not developed for this type of abuse. They're real, legitimate things used by billions of people across the world. The danger was the specific set of conditions that these tools create, allowing a person to completely destroy a human life without ever laying a physical hand on them. And since the Ninth Room, similar rings have surfaced in Australia, the United States, Japan, and Hong Kong. As this infrastructure is borderless, and the sad reality is, it's almost impossible to completely stop.
Bro, niggas are so weird. Hopefully. Ooh, I kind of want to watch. Hey, look, bro. Look, bro. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a long screen. Today can't be long. I'm sorry.